Okay, let's dive into setting up your eBay seller account. This is a one-time only step. Then, using eBay and any other sources you can find, although eBay is the easiest, thoroughly research the item you want to sell. After setting up your eBay account, you can use eBay and any other sources you can find, although I think eBay is the easiest. Thoroughly research the item you want to sell. This research process will give you some idea of what will be considered a reasonable asking price. Also, and most important, if your goal is to turn your eBay experience into a profitable business, research will help you identify your competition. Find out whether the merchandise you plan to sell is already being sold, perhaps in large quantities by some other eBay entrepreneur. Next, photograph your item. It's safe to say that no one will buy an item on eBay or anywhere else without having seen that item first. Most bidders won't even read a listing that doesn't include a photograph, and a pretty doggone good one at that. So be prepared to provide a picture. What kind of picture depends on the equipment you have. Like it or not, and depending on your experience as a techie, digital photographs are the best. You'll need a digital camera. You know where to get one if you don't have one? There are some good bargains on digital cameras. Where else? On eBay. If you have a scanner, you can take a picture with a regular camera, have the film developed, and then scan those pictures for use on eBay. You'll need to be very familiar with your scanner so that you can provide the best quality picture that accurately and fairly depicts the item. Selecting the right category in which to auction an item should be comparatively simple, assuming you have, as suggested earlier, researched the item on eBay. Remember that most bidders look for specific items in subcategories and even sub-subcategories. So if you're trying to sell a Tiffany lamp, don't just list it under lamps. Select the best possible category, subcategory, and subcategory, and as appropriate, where the bidders you are hoping to attract are most likely to look. Okay, now that you have the best possible photo of the item you're trying to sell, and you selected the right category for that item, what's next? Describe it. What are you trying to sell? It's time to write a description. Don't waste time trying to remember all the stuff your old high school English composition teacher taught you. You're not taking the SATs. You're trying to attract bidders and get them interested in buying your item. Start with all the positive things you can think of. Don't overdo it, but don't undersell the item either. You can describe your item in the most flattering way possible without exaggerating or glossing over its less purchase-worthy characteristics. Begin with the basics. What color is the item? How big is it? If it's made of fabric, what kind? Describe the fabric in detail, including the design if there is one. If the item is new or like new. If the item has never been removed from the original container, then it's safe to use the term mint in your description. Remember, however, that mint implies that an item is very close to brand new, so use the term carefully. There are code terms typically used on eBay to help you write the best possible description. For example, NIB means new in box. The item is still in the original box in which it came in, so it's very close to being just as one might expect to find it in the store. MOC means mint on card. The item is mounted on the original display card and attached with the original fasteners. NRFB means never removed from box. The item was bought or received as a gift, but has never been opened. OOAK means one of a kind. The one you're selling is, to your knowledge, the only one there is. NWT means new with tags. The item, in this case usually clothing, has never been worn and still has the manufacturer's tags attached. These are just a few examples. In doing your research, you will get a better idea of what kind of terminology is used to describe items for sale. Above all, you must be honest about the item or items. If you exaggerate just to make a sale, the feedback from the purchaser will be negative, and your reputation as a seller, which is everything on eBay, will be tarnished, perhaps for good. So if the item you are selling is used, say so. Over time, as you develop a good reputation, you can use any good feedback you get as a selling point in your item description. Purchasers like to deal with sellers who have satisfied customers before. It's a good idea to end your description by inviting bidders to email you with any questions they may have. And be sure to answer those emails promptly and honestly. Before you're ready to start accepting bids, go back over all the information. Make sure that you have listed your item in the appropriate category, that your description is accurate, honest, and free of spelling and grammatical errors, and that you have covered shipping and handling costs, and if it will be necessary, insurance. You can't double check too much. As a rule, your auction will appear in the selected category within 2 hours. We're going to go over the dynamics of going from eBay as a hobby to eBay as a business. It must be noted that eBay millionaires still do not make up a major segment of the people who operate an eBay-based business. That said, however, and as noted earlier, according to a study conducted for eBay, more than 750,000 Americans now use selling on eBay as their primary or secondary source of income. Clearly an impressive statistic. It should also be noted that most people who decide to pursue eBay sales as a business rather than a hobby are not prepared for the amount of hard work involved. Of course, while sheer volume of sales is the usual road to success and profit, you might also consider dealing in a product or merchandise that customers will value because it is unique. People love to buy one-of-a-kind items. If you can identify merchandise or a specific item that is rare enough to make customers willing to pay more, a lot more, for the privilege of owning it, then you may not need to worry about business volume. In this case, your customer base would consist of people with a great deal of disposable income and an inclination to dispose of it in purchasing the special item or services that only you are positioned to provide. Think about it. Rolls-Royce, Maybach, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. None of these companies depend on high-volume business to make a profit. On the contrary, it's their exclusivity along with the high prices of these and other luxury items that causes attraction. Choose to specialize in high-end, high-priced merchandise that attracts a specific high-income market, and you won't need high-volume sales to succeed. The key to doing this is getting to know your customer, their needs, their likes, their dislikes, their interests. In order to sell to them, you must first learn to speak their language. Thus, your sales approach will stress that your product or merchandise is not only the highest quality, but also unique, even scarce. Get to know your customers personally so they will automatically come back to you when it comes time to dispose of some of that disposable income. Selling on eBay with a view toward creating a multi-million-dollar business is more challenging than one may think. As with any business operation, there is a great deal of trial and error involved and learning from one's mistakes. But fortunately, I am here today to give you my experience, which will get you where you want to go quick. Okay, let's talk about your business plan. Yes, even an eBay business needs a formal plan. eBay is, in many respects, such an informal business setting that many entrepreneurs fail to recognize the necessity of having a formal business plan. It's like having a roadmap. You can't get to your destination if you don't know which way you're going. A business plan identifies the product or merchandise you plan to sell, how you plan to sell that merchandise, and a timetable and milestones by which you can measure success. Bottom line, if you want to turn your eBay business into a thriving, potentially lucrative endeavor, you have to do your homework. Learn all you can, not only about eBay, but more important, about the product you'll be selling. If you're stuck on a business plan and need some help getting one done, go to my website, www.bruceaberman.com, and go to the business product section. You will find a simple-to-use business plan available to you. Now let's talk to the big dogs, the power sellers. Let's get their advice. They ought to know. Those who have made it to the ranks of the titanium power sellers advise beginning your eBay business venture as a buyer rather than a seller. And they don't mean buying just one or two items. Get your feet good and wet, buying numerous items, dealing with many sellers, learning the ins and outs of the payment process, calculating shipping and handling cost, and so forth. The more personal experience you gain in the bidding process and in purchasing items from other sellers, the sooner you will pick up on the many nuances of doing business on eBay. You will see, for example, that most sellers set very low opening prices. The lower the opening price, the more bidders you will attract. You will also learn about the critical importance of providing an absolutely first-rate, top-quality photograph. Stinting on the photograph, providing a picture that is a little too grainy or slightly overexposed or underexposed or is insufficiently detailed, all perhaps as an effort to save a little money on the front end, will only hurt your chances of obtaining the highest possible bid for your item. By beginning as a buyer on eBay, you will also learn about the advantages of shorter online auction times. The temptation is always great to stretch out the auction for an item or items as long as possible with the hope of attracting even higher bids. It's a strategy that makes sense sometimes. Still, there are times when it may be best to accept a particular offer rather than hope for a better one, especially if your research shows a higher offer for a particular item or items is unlikely. Again, these are kinds of nuances that you can only pick up by bidding and buying on eBay before you begin selling. It's a good idea to check the feedback on sellers who will become your competitors, especially if you plan to specializing in selling one form of merchandise on eBay. This is as good a time as any to note that one of the requirements for becoming an eBay power seller, in addition to a very high dollar volume of monthly sales, is a virtually spotless feedback record. This means responding preferably within the hour to all email inquiries. Remember, there may be days when you get over 1,000 emails. Do the math. The more items you have on auction, the more emails you will receive. Be prepared to respond to every single one. It also means providing super specific payment and shipping instructions and providing more than one option of payment, as mentioned earlier, so that customer feels they have some measure of control over transaction. For example, if the merchandise you sell is comparatively small and easy to ship, you might give customers the option of buying more than one item and having them shipped together, thus saving on shipping costs. Note, UPS Priority Mail flat rate boxes are perfect for combined shipping orders. Up to 50 pounds of merchandise can be shipped in one box for a flat rate in the United States. Focus on providing quick, on-time delivery. It's one of the best ways to build up these all-important high feedback ratings. Internet customers, and for that matter, most kinds of customers, thrive on and come back repeatedly to companies that provide personal service. Internet customers in particular like to know that they can touch base with the person or company with whom they are doing business at any time by clicking on a link, sending an email message, or making a telephone call. Toll-free numbers are usually costly, but eBay power sellers insist that having a toll-free number for your customer is well worth the expense. You can get ideas for the best and most successful approaches to customer service from other eBay power sellers, but never copy their slogans or techniques verbatim. Customers will view this as theft, even if you didn't intend it that way, and they will tend to mistrust you. Your reputation for honesty is the most valuable asset you have. Don't endanger it by stealing ideas from another eBay listing or store. The best way to understand how your counterparts approach customer service is to read their feedback. Find out what their customers have to say. If, for example, customers report excellent product, fast shipping, excellent communications, immediate email response, merchandise shipped in beautiful box. Then you know right away what those customers value most, and that tells you what you need to do to garner similar feedback, regardless of what your product is. Remember also to personalize your attention to customers. Internet customers in particular like to know they are dealing with real people, not just a disembodied voice or a person in some remote location who knows how to send an email. Bottom line, customer service is not rocket science. If your customers come away pleased and happy with the transaction, and that means with the merchandise itself, with the personal individual attention you provided, with the care that went into the packaging of the merchandise, with the promptness of the shipping, with your immediate availability and willingness to address any problems, they will then come back to you. And more important, they will recommend you to their friends. Does this mean you will please every single customer with whom you do business? Of course not. It's not common and very hard to find an eBay seller that has achieved a 100% positive feedback rating, as you can't please everyone. But the most successful eBay sellers strive for and usually achieve at least 99%. So that's your goal. Many potential entrepreneurs are attracted to this venue because of the comparatively low cost associated with doing business on eBay. Advertising costs, for example, in any other type of retail business can be high. Even something as simple as running an ad in the Yellow Pages can run into considerable expense. Nor is there any guarantee that such ads will attract enough customers for the business to reach and sustain viability. With eBay, however, your potential audience is already in place and global. Thus, establishing a clientele online should be a much easier proposition than building a client base in the usual manner. This is a good place to bring up another point that is often stressed by the established eBay power sellers. Don't ignore foreign markets. Too many eBay entrepreneurs focus their attention solely on American markets, when eBay is growing most rapidly in Eastern Europe and Asia. By immediately capitalizing on and setting out to attract customers from overseas, you may be able to outstrip not only your eBay competitors, but also the retail storefront competition. Just remember, if you're trying to reach overseas buyers, say so specifically in your auction listings. Of course, one of the major attractions of setting up an eBay-based business is being able to set your own hours. It's a wonderful opportunity for parents to work around children's school schedules. To ease the worry of jumping into your own business, you can still keep your full-time job and slowly ease into eBay. Owning your own business and setting your own hours is a tremendous drawing factor for those who want to set up a business on eBay. Foregoing high-end corporate business dress in favor of working from your home or office every day in old jeans and a sweatshirt is enough to turn the head of any entrepreneur or even established corporate bigwig. Then there is the question of overhead. In doing business on eBay, these costs may be marginal, particularly if it is likely to be the case you'll be working from your home. But, and this is a major consideration, if you intend to operate the kind of business in which you buy and stockpile inventory that you plan to sell on eBay, then overhead costs could be a significant factor. Many an eBay entrepreneurs come face to face with the clutter factor and found that addressing that problem might involve considerable outlay of money. More than one eBay business retailer has found him or herself with such a large inventory of merchandise that it became necessary to buy or lease storage space, a separate house, or even a warehouse, even as they are successfully selling the merchandise. If, for example, you plan to sell small collectible items or craft, your spare bedroom may suffice quite well as a storage space. But suppose you plan to sell clothing or furniture or musical instruments. In such cases, and a host of others, the issue of storage will have to be considered and cost for that storage calculated as part of your spending. Of course, you could get lucky and end up dealing in one of the unique but incredibly popular items, like handmade wool hats and gloves from New Zealand sheep. In a situation of that kind, and given the possibility of consistently high demand, your inventory is unlikely to ever be high enough for storage concerns to become an issue. Okay, What do you do after you've emptied the basement? You've sold everything you have. The question of overhead raises another important point for those who want to build a viable eBay-based retail business. As noted earlier, most people get started on eBay by selling things they have around the house. That's fine as a hobby, but it's unlikely that you'll be able to build a long-term profitable business on that basis. For one thing, eventually you'll run out of things to sell, and even your friends may tire of your mining their homes for saleable treasures. So at some point, you'll probably have to identify a specific item or group of items that you want to sell. Note, eBay titanium power sellers strongly suggest that you make sure the product you choose to sell is something you like yourself. Or even better, something for which you have a deep and abiding interest. It stands to reason that the more interested you are, the more passionately you feel about your product or merchandise, the more that feeling will translate itself to customers. And of equal importance, sell something about which you have developed and plan to maintain a real expertise. Very often it will be your expertise that helps you outsell the competition. Customers are attracted not necessarily to the biggest sellers, but to the seller who knows the merchandise inside and out, and who clearly enjoys talking about it and being involved in the transaction. So be businesslike and professional, but at the same time, be approachable, down to earth, and fun. You want to be the first place that comes to mind when a customer is looking for that particular product or merchandise. More important, you want to develop a reliable and irrefutable reputation, not only for your expertise, but also for your quality, honesty, and business integrity. Assuming that you do not have an existing source of merchandise from a retail or wholesale storefront operation, in order to build a viable eBay business, you will, in all probability, have to be prepared to find a wholesale supplier. As a rule, there is no way to circumvent this step. Trade shows are excellent places to identify new sources of merchandise and to meet both manufacturers and wholesalers. Depending on the merchandise, you'll probably have to go through the manufacturer to find the wholesaler. You must also obtain a reseller certificate or tax ID number from your state Department of Revenue. Be prepared to face some skepticism from manufacturers, wholesalers, and suppliers at first. It's amazing how many business people do not consider eBay to be a real business. The safest move when you approach the manufacturer is not to mention eBay at all. Provide your tax ID and business address. Wholesalers are likely to ask for references. If you've sold things on eBay for friends, family, former coworkers, and so forth, you can, with their permission, of course, give their names as references. Another tip from the eBay power sellers, list your business in the local telephone directory. Such a listing gives you some semblance of immediate credibility of a kind that doing business on eBay may not readily provide right away. A good way to provide that credibility is to resell merchandise that you may find at a local flea market on eBay's wholesale lots. You need not make this a long-term practice. It's just a way of jump-starting efforts to build your reputation when you're just starting out. Once you've identified the wholesaler, be honest and upfront about what you're doing. Tell them that you plan to buy the merchandise and resell it on eBay. More than likely, you will have to sign an agreement with which you guarantee to resell a certain percentage of the merchandise at below retail prices. Especially if your funds are somewhat tight at the beginning, you will be tempted to limit the amount of merchandise you purchase from the wholesaler. The idea of going into debt will certainly not go down well. eBay power sellers would probably recommend a different approach, however. Instead of limiting the amount of your purchase, try to corner the market in your particular merchandise. In other words, consider setting yourself up right away as the number one eBay source for whatever it is you're selling. Yes, it's a gamble, and yes, you might have to consider taking out a loan or making extensive use of a credit line to do this, but this approach can give you the competitive edge that you need and provide a way for you to immediately distinguish yourself from the competition. With hard work and the right timing, this is a gamble that could pay off handsomely for a long time, over and over again. A final note about the wholesalers. Be sure you've identified one or more who can supply you with merchandise quickly, easily, and throughout the year. If you're planning to build a high-volume business by selling lots of the same type of merchandise, for example, clothing which must be sold in different colors, sizes, and so forth, you may want to consider using Turbo Lister, eBay's free listing tool. With Turbo Lister, you can create a sales description that includes basic general information, a sort of sales template. Then as you list new merchandise, you need only tweak that description slightly and you're ready to post the item, rather than having to create a new description for every item you want to sell. Indeed, one of the advantages of selling this type of merchandise on eBay is that it takes much less time. Think about it. If a person comes into a clothing store, he or she may try on 5 or 6 different outfits. If they end up buying it all, the decision could take an hour or longer. On eBay, it takes only a few minutes to answer an email, to change a color, or correct the size on an order. The less time a transaction takes, the more transactions you can complete. Here's another time saver, especially if you buy in bulk. Ask the wholesaler supplier for generic photos that you can use as part of your Turbo Lister tool template. This will cut down considerably the amount of time you'll have to spend taking and uploading pictures of the merchandise. After you've reached an agreement with a wholesaler, you'll be ready to sell the merchandise in an eBay store at a fixed price. The good news, from your perspective as a seller, is that eBay stores not only encourage repeat buyers, they are also excellent for people who want to deal in large quantities of one or more items. Even if you plan to sell a wide variety of items, eBay stores provide a great organizational base since you can put your item into subcategories and into sub-subcategories to make it easy for potential bidders to narrow their search and zero in on your particular merchandise. Put another way, a person who is looking for a size 8 ring doesn't have to search through thousands of other ring sizes before he or she finds some merchandise from which to make a selection. Outstripping the competition, online and offline. Find a market in which you can, on eBay, undercut and therefore outsell your retail storefront competitors. Once you've identified that market, stay focused on it and work to build a stable cadre of repeat customers. Among eBay titanium power sellers, there's a rule of thumb. Don't try to sell anything. Your goal should be to make high-quality, reliable merchandise easily and readily available. If you do that, the word will get out and customers will find you and do business with you without ever hearing a sales pitch. If you are clear about the goals of your business, and if you are as enthusiastic and diligent in your business philosophy, you will succeed. Many of the expenses that are associated with running an eBay business are identical to the expenses that come with any other type of business. Remember that your budget calculations will have to include the fees that sellers must pay for listing items on eBay. These fees are not always large, but they have to be calculated in the price of doing business on eBay. Also, to be included in these calculations is the percentage of the final selling price that the seller must pay to eBay. It is, remember, a business, and as such is focused on making a profit, just as you are. One eBay power seller has estimated that fees associated with doing business on eBay can add up to nearly 25% of sales. Other expenses that must be included in your budget calculations are internet access, transportation to and from the post office, UPS, or FedEx, to send merchandise, and even long-distance phone charges. All of these things have to be taken into account in any attempt to set up a formal business operation using eBay as the base. Consider also the reality of photographing hundreds and hundreds of items, something that you are likely to have to do yourself, at least in the beginning. It's one thing to photograph 10 or 15 items, quite another to spend many grinding hours taking picture after picture after picture, and then there are potentially hundreds of emails that you will have to respond to. You may also want to consider creating your own website from which you can sell directly to customers and establish an even more personal identity for your business and your products. I will get into how to build and market your own website later today in my massive Internet Income Seminar. This is not a tip you will gain from eBay for obvious reasons, since it means you can attract customers on your own without going through the auction process or paying eBay listing fees. If you do set up a website, you cannot direct buyers there through your eBay auction, as this violates the selling contract and eBay will cancel your auction. It's important that you learn the rules at eBay so you don't waste time and money just to find you have an auction that is not allowed and then removed. If you continue to have listings that are not valid, eBay will suspend your account. With all that said, even the most die-hard eBay power sellers will tell you that setting up your own website is an additional option that is well worth considering. If you decide to create a website, wait till the end of my massive Internet Income Seminar today, and you will learn so many ways to build a website and create massive amounts of traffic to it. Many storefront retailers are adding eBay to their sales venue and may spend an additional 5 or 6 hours a day working on eBay in addition to whatever time they spend working on site in their stores. Still, other retailers are debating the merits of setting up a website for their business or establishing their presence full-time on eBay. The most successful eBay sellers have always recognized the advantages of learning from one another. Indeed, open collaboration is one of the greatest assets of the eBay community as a whole. It's no small wonder that eBay business newcomers who collaborate with their more experienced counterparts exponentially increase their chances for success. Most eBay power sellers are more than willing to give advice to the new kids on the eBay block. The best way to find help is to check out the eBay Groups area on the eBay website. There you'll find multiple listings of local eBay sellers who share information online or may hold in-person meetings from time to time. New eBay business entrepreneurs are often surprised to learn that many of the most successful eBay business people sell primarily through eBay stores. In this way, they can sell merchandise at a fixed price, limit the merchandise listed on auction, and use the auction primarily as a way to direct customers to their eBay store. For example, if you have 10 dresses you want to sell, you could list one for auction and include that description the fact that more sizes and colors are available through your eBay store. Now, fees for eBay store listings can be significantly lower than fees for listing items on auction. As with your regular eBay listings in your website, if you decide to create one, it's a good idea to list the services of a graphic designer to help you create the right appearance and layout for your eBay store. As you will see, there are many options and possible color schemes. Choosing the right one for the optimal presentation of your merchandise is critical. A word of warning: while studying other eBay store layouts to get ideas is entirely acceptable, even recommended, never, under any circumstances, copy another design or image. Potential customers are likely to recognize the ripoff, and you will end up not only losing sales, but also, in all likelihood, receiving negative feedback. Ideally, your eBay store listing should include, at the top of the homepage, a description of the business and the merchandise you sell. Because eBay store listings are available through Google as well as other major search engines, opening an eBay store means almost instant merchandise exposure. Also, listings cost less on an eBay store than on the regular auction. Let's talk about keywords. The important thing is selecting the right keywords that potential customers are likely to use in conducting, for example, a Google search, and therefore to increase as much as possible the chance of your listing coming up in the search results. The best way to do this, according to successful eBay store owners, is to buy keywords through the eBay Keywords program, which is available to anyone currently selling items on eBay. The only requirement for buying eBay keywords is that the seller must have a feedback rating of at least 20. eBay keywords are tailored to your merchandise and audience, and perhaps most important, they usually cost less than keywords from Google or other major search engines because you submit a bid or bids on the keywords you want. Suppose, for example, you are selling Mont Blanc fountain pens and you place a bid of 75 cents on those 4 words, Mont Blanc fountain pens. If your bid is the highest, then your ad would be displayed at the top of the page of eBay search results. Customers who Google the search words Mont Blanc fountain pens will immediately see your ad first. This is a distinct advantage since these customers already know what they want. They're just looking for the right place to buy. Choosing keywords is not easy as it involves trying to identify every possible term or combination of terms consumers might enter into a particular search. Fortunately, you can get help in this all-important selection process by going to an eBay keywords page and browsing a list of the most popular keywords. I will also spend 15 to 30 minutes on purchasing keywords from Google and Yahoo later on today in our internet session. Marketing your eBay store. Another way to draw customers to your eBay store is to advertise on one or more of the many major shopping search engines, such as bizrate.com or shopping.com. On shopping.com, you will pay between 10 and 50 cents per click, but many eBay store owners say it's worth the price. If you decide to set up an eBay store, consider generating an extensible markup language, XML version, or feed for the merchandise you plan to sell. This is simply a link to the retail arm of a search engine. For example, Google's retail arm is called Frugal, so that your merchandise will be automatically included in Frugal as well as Google search results. Again, the idea is do whatever is necessary to ensure that you attract the largest possible number of potential customers. Of course, you never get so caught up in the fixed price merchandise available from your eBay store that you neglect new merchandise. A new arrivals designation in your eBay store will attract customers and let them know you are keeping up with their desire for access to and information about whatever is new and exciting in your product line. After you've gotten some experience under your belt, so to speak, you may want to consider branching out and selling merchandise for others. If you decide to do this, be sure to include a disclaimer in the sales descriptions. You don't want to be liable for problems that may result from the sale of another person's merchandise. Such liability could generate negative feedback, something no eBay seller in particular can afford. Finally, even the most successful eBay power sellers are willing to admit that they cannot do everything on their own. High volume sales don't come without help, be it in the form of some new kind of organizational or accounting software, or hiring employees or working with consultants who bring a particular expertise to the business of selling. So never be afraid or ashamed to ask for help. The titanium power sellers didn't make it on their own either. After our break, we're going to dive into my massive internet income seminar. I want you to get your piece of the $100 billion internet pie. There is so much money to be made on the internet, whether you're using someone else's website like eBay or building your own. The internet is so massive, it takes 2 seminar sessions to complete. Even the people that decide they only want to use eBay to make money on the internet find my massive internet income marketing seminars a must before starting their eBay business. I will teach you all the complexities of the internet as a whole and how to drive massive amounts of people to your site. If you don't believe that I can do it, ask yourself, how did you get here today? You saw a marketing piece of mine, it drove you to my website, and you ordered online. If I can drive you to my website, I can show you how to drive people just like you to your websites. My websites get millions of visitors. Yours can too.